Welcome to Giving You a Fresh Start. Regina Sanchez here, your spiritual life and health coach, believing in you. Welcome to my weekly video and podcast series, Giving You a Fresh Start, because I want you to know that each and every day you can have a fresh start. So if you made mistakes and you've done things wrong, no matter what, we can always have a fresh start. It doesn't even have to, we don't even need to wait for the next day. We can have a fresh start that day. So, this series today, what I would like to talk about is the history of chemical medications and how we came about having, and going more from natural meds to chemical medications and how that came to be. But one of the things I want you to think about, or a question I want to pose to you to have in the back of your mind, is who is controlling the narrative, right? Think about that. Just hold that thought in the back of your mind as I go over, all of this information. And as we navigate down the road of traditional medicine and where we're at now as a society. So it goes back many years ago, to the late 1800s actually, where John D. Rockefeller was the first billionaire. And he was the one that paved the way for the power-hungry individuals, whether they were corporate CEOs, politicians, entrepreneurs. But it sort of paved the way for the wealthy to be power-hungry, not only in their money, but in their control of people and their narrative, right? So Rockefeller was the founder of the Standard Oil Company in the late 1800s. And he ran the company until 1897, and then he remained the largest shareholder. But he was a very, very wealthy man from the oil industry. He was the founder, as I said, of the Standard Oil Company. And when he stepped away from being the CEO and running the company, as I said, he was the largest shareholder. So he still was very much involved in the oil industry. But in the in the early 1900s, he began to take over control of the media by influencing to them what to report and what he wanted reported. But also, not only was Rockefeller involved in that, but so was the CIA. So much so that in 1975, the House Intelligence Committee had hearings in Congress with the CIA regarding their covert takeover of the media. And at that time, they were calling it Operation Mockingbird. And I think it's still in effect. I still see it referenced many times now. And it's been interesting as we've journeyed this past month and a half to see what is being reported via the media and what is not being reported, right? So the CIA at that time had over 3,000 operatives that were placed in key media positions. They were posing as editors and journalists. They even infiltrated colleges as professors so they could bend the minds of these young, vulnerable adults, right? So it's amazing. And the hearings that they had in 1975, they were questioning the CIA to understand their operations. But they ask, even to this day, is the CIA still involved? And I would venture to guess yes. In 1952, there was a memo that was from one of the CIA officials that said, controlling an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will. So that was sort of their operation, their motive, was to be able to control individuals to the point that they would do the bidding, even if it was against their will. It was probably on an unconscious level that individuals were doing the bidding of the CIA. And there have been individuals that have come forth as whistleblowers that have discussed how the CIA is so infiltrated in so many aspects of our society, so many industries, like Hollywood, and how the CIA infiltrates and influences a lot of movies, which I thought that was really, really interesting. And right now, there's like a handful of corporate control media outlets that control television, they control print media, um, radio, Hollywood, companies like Comcast and Viacom and Times Warner, Disney, CBS, right? It's really only a handful of companies that are controlling all of these entities. It's really quite amazing. Um, and what we have found, even today, right, even in this past year and a half, where radio or television stations would be reporting the same um, issue, but saying the same exact things. Whereas actually, some people have taken the recordings of all these different TV stations and had them on a screen, and there was about 20 of them, and they were all saying the exact same words. They synced it together, so that you had this big screen of all these individual journalists um, reporting the exact same words. And an example I had seen was of Amazon when, the whole virus issue came out last year, and Amazon wanted everyone to know how they were keeping their employees safe in all of their warehouses. And every TV station that reported it in the exact same words. So I think that's quite interesting. So not only, was Rockefeller involved in, controlling the media, but so is the CIA. But let's get back to Rockefeller. I just wanted to give that information and add that in because I thought that was quite interesting for me. So as Rockefeller went on in his years, his wealth just soared, with kerosene and gasoline growing in importance. And as I said, he became the richest person in the country, and he controlled over 90% of the oil in the U.S. But at one point, it was discovered that drugs could be created from petroleum. So it was at that time that this oil mongrel hijacked natural medicine, right? They discovered that they can create these drugs from petroleum. So Rockefeller then purchased a German pharmaceutical company that manufactured chemicals of war for Adolf Hitler. And he later pursued Congress to consider natural healing modalities as scientific quackery. So he was very instrumental in eliminating natural cures to introduce what we know today as big pharma. And he would shun doctors. They would shun, he as well as others would shun doctors that still wanted to practice with natural healing, and emphasize using, these chemical, sometimes poisonous drugs that were basically for profit, right? Natural healing, what kind of profit can you get from herbs and diet changes and so forth? But Rockefeller had absolutely no concern of human suffering or the effects that these drugs were causing. And everyone was instructed to teach what he preached. And he became known as a eugenicist, just like Bill Gates is today known. Bill Gates is known for wanting to control the population with vaccinations, actually. He has said this in a number of his talks. But Rockefeller then funded the Eugenics Record Office, and the Rockefeller Foundation helped fund the German eugenics program, which included a program where a gentleman, Joseph Mengele, worked. And Joseph Mengele was known as the Angel of Death. He was a German officer and a physician during World War II. And he was remembered for, Joseph was remembered for his work in Auschwitz, the concentration camp where he performed deadly experiments on prisoners. And that's how the whole Nuremberg Code came to be. And that's an interesting thing that we need to look at, because that is starting to pop its head in this day. There are many attorneys and physicians all over the world that are filing suits pertaining to the lack of adhering to the Nuremberg Code in what's been happening this past year and a half. But so that from World War II is where the Nuremberg Code was developed, because of these non-humane treatment of prisoners. They were medical experiments in these concentration camps. So Mengele was a member of the team of doctors who selected the victims to go to the gas chambers, and he was one of the doctors that administered the gas. But Rockefeller went on in years, and he was always preaching depopulation. And he was absolutely successful in hijacking the media and medicine. Okay? And it was then that natural medicine became classified as alternative. And the focus was on these chemical drugs that could be highly addictive, but were patentable. And as I said before, natural healing medication is not, natural healing medicine, I guess, that you could say, it's not patentable. But these drugs were, and they became the gold standard. John Rockefeller then took over the American Medical Association, and he began offering massive grants to top medical schools under the mandate that if they took these grants, they had to only teach his approved curriculum. And his approved curriculum obviously did not include natural healing. It was all about a pill for an ill. And that's kind of how we came to be with all of this. Plants and herbs and diet were basically eliminated from most medical books. And if you were a doctor that was opposed to this concept of medicine, you were removed from the American Medical Association. And in some cases, your license was removed. And even in some cases, you were arrested and thrown in jail. And we are seeing some of that happen right now with some physicians that have been trying to treat this specific virus for the past year and a half with proven successful medications. So it's almost like we're coming full circle again. Excuse me. But when it was found that a lot of these medications were causing cancers or had massive side effects, but specifically cancers, that's when he funded and founded the American Cancer Association. Because then he could control what was being put out there as far as what treatments were, what was being said about it, and so forth. So that a lot of that is attributed to Rockefeller, and it's sad because I believe we're not getting the truth in a lot of areas. My understanding that October is Cancer Awareness Month, and I'm like, really? How much more awareness do we need about cancer? I think we are as a society pretty aware how prevalent it is out there. How about if we make October Cancer Preventive Month? And let's go out and educate people on what they could do to prevent it. Right? We don't need more awareness. We don't need more fundraising. How much more fundraising do we need to stop cancer? I mean, that's been going on, I remember, since I was a child. We're looking at 50 plus years of research, of walks against cancer and so forth. How about if we begin educating people on what they can do to prevent it? Medicine, my friends, is the third leading cause of death in our society, thanks to Rockefeller. The third leading cause of death. The first leading cause is heart disease, heart attacks. Think about that. Each year, Big Pharma is out there with the medical lobbyist spending twice the amount of money they're allowed to influence on the laws, the policies, and the public perception. Think about commercials, right? I'm not sure when it was approved that pharmaceutical companies could advertise on television, but that not always was the case. I remember growing up, alcohol and cigarettes were, I think, if I remember, but then it got removed. Cigarettes could no longer advertise on television, but alcohol could not, right? But pharmaceutical drugs can be. So think about an advertisement, right, on television. You get this commercial of a specific drug, and while they are reading off the very scary, dangerous side effects, you are looking at a beautiful image of families being together, happy people, families playing, families running, families enjoying dinner. I don't know, whatever. But the visual that you're looking at on the television is happy. But meanwhile, in the background are the list of side effects. But I think our brain likes visual, and our brain goes to looking and sort of tuning out what's being said. So that if you have a specific medical condition and your doctor wants to give you that specific pharmaceutical, you're remembering those happy pictures. You're not remembering what you heard about the side effects. It's clever. It's been very clever how we, the public perception, has been on a great level brainwashed to think in a certain way. That's why they call it TV programming, because they're programming us with their agenda and their way of thinking, right? There is no other industry that has more power over our lives than pharma, big pharma. And we think about an example of when, Trump passed the bill or the executive order to lower insulin. People were so grateful, right? And now it's back up again. And people are in an utter panic. And rightly so. The what's being charged right now, or what you have to pay for insulin, is insane. But if you are a type 2 diabetic and you make the right lifestyle changes, right? Whether it be your health, whether it be your diet, your stress management, your sleep, what you put in your body, on your body. If you start making those changes, you could potentially get off of insulin. Now, if you're a type 1 diabetic, you can't. But we have become so, I don't want to use the word brainwashed, but we have become so adhere to the thinking of that when we have an illness, we need a drug, instead of first trying to, manage it with lifestyle changes. Not saying drugs are never to be had, but as I've said before, don't let it be your anchor. Like, maybe let the drug be your sort of like the standby until you can get your life back in order and make those lifestyle changes, because making lifestyle changes takes some time. So you may need that medication to hold you over until you can make those changes. But don't let medication be your anchor, right? There was something that Robert Kennedy Jr., who is a big advocate of really getting out there medical issues. Let me just leave it at that. I don't want to get into specifics. I make it censored. But one of the things he said that his father always said to him is, people in authority lie, and they will abuse every power that we relinquish to them. What have we relinquished? To our government? To our medical industries? To our employers? We are losing our rights because we, the people, are handing them over. One of the things I love, Dr. Kelly Brogan, who is a holistic psychiatrist. I love her work. I love her book. I can't think of the name of it. Healing the Mind or something. I forget. But she's fabulous, and she works with her psychiatric patients to help them get off their psychiatric medications. And she begins with looking at their life, their lifestyle, and making holistic changes and dietary changes and things of that nature. And she's very successful at it. And I love her work. But she made this statement. I want to just read it here so that I get it fully. She says, we seek to numb the pain and look for band-aid solutions outside of ourselves to fix us and make us whole, only to come up empty. Right? Understand, my friends, that the path to better health is through diet and lifestyle. Just take a look at the blue zone areas of the world. I think there's 7 specific areas in the world. I mean, Japan has one, Italy has one. I think there's one in Greece. There's actually one in California that have a geographic population of people that are healthy. They don't have the chronic illnesses that the rest of the world has. And they live like 10 to 12 years longer because of their lifestyle. It's interesting. You know, Google it and look up blue zones. I think, like I said, I think there's 7 specific areas. But we, as a nation, spend so much money on healthcare because we wait until people are sick and then we try to fix the problem with medications. You know, it's like putting a patch on a boat. That ain't gonna work. Eventually that patch is gonna wear away, give away, or the water is going to start seeping through somehow, some way. You can't patch it. You've got to fix it. We can't patch our health with medications. And prior to Rockefeller, we were using natural healing modalities to heal us. And yes, they absolutely take longer than a lot of the medications. But usually there's no side effect. There's no worry about what the medication you may be taking is doing to you. Right? But our nation is getting sicker. Our children are getting sicker. This is just not right. Look around us. Children now, younger and younger, are now more obese and are dealing with diabetes, cancers in our young children. This should not be. When children have, you know, really strong immune systems. Oh gosh, what is the answer? A lot of it is the food we eat, right? And our greatest contributor to our health is the food we eat. They say we will consume about 80,000 pounds of food in our lifetime. And that food is going to be the driver of your health are one of the drivers of your health. So friends, I hope you found this interesting. I certainly did, to understand how politics or power and wealth can become abused to take over what may be in our well-being, right? And so power-hungry individuals like people like Rockefeller have come in and changed the scope of healing and health, turned medical schools around to what he wanted taught because he had a profit in it, right? Because he could patent medications. And as I wrap up this talk, as I always promise, that I will have a weekly tip. So what I want you to walk away with this week is to understand that healing is an inside job. It has to come from within, not necessarily from without. So be blessed, my friends. Have a great rest of the week until we meet again next week. I'd love to hear your comments. Please comment below. Please subscribe. Hit the subscribe button so then you can be notified of when I do release videos. I am at this point doing weekly videos, but as I get inspired and if something comes up, I will do more than that. But I just hope that you are enjoying this. I hope you're finding it educational. And you know what? I'm going to give you one more weekly tip. Don't believe a word I just said. Don't believe a word anybody says. Go do your own research so that you know in your heart what the truth is. Get that revelation yourself. Get that truth yourself. Once you have that, then you'll be more settled in understanding what to believe once you get the truth. But if you keep, waiting for others to give it to you, it can be confusing because there's so many voices out there right now, because there's so many agendas. I have not one agenda but to help you walk in the fullness of health and well-being that God gave you. So be blessed, and until we meet again, have a great week. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.